thing is, why we're so disconnected from our emotions is because many of us grew up, even our parents, before that, not with people saying, hey, what you're feeling is so natural and normal. You're supposed to have emotions. We are here to feel emotions. We are human. I get to be in my power now. I get to be like, okay, well, why was that upsetting me? What is really there that I haven't looked at that maybe I really need to look at again and figure out why it's there? Hello and welcome to another episode of The Quantum Woman. My name is Shamina Taylor and I'm your host. So today we're going to talk about responding versus reacting. And, a lot of people don't understand the difference between the two. And many people don't have the control to really understand what a reaction is and what a response is. And this is why I teach emotional mastery, because I really believe that once we understand what a response is and what a reaction is, we can, move through to the next level of success of where we're going. You'll hear people say, they were just doing it to get a reaction out of me. They were just doing it to get a reaction out of me. And what I want to invite you here in this conversation is to understand that when you have a level of self-mastery with your emotions, your ability to respond to people will become so elevated that you will not be reacting to them and giving your power away to them. When we are doing a response, you're having something come from a place of power. When you're doing a reaction, you're coming from a place of not power, right? But hear me out. We're allowed to feel whatever we want to feel when anything happens to us. Our emotions are very valid. We get to feel exactly what we want to feel. But this is where the power comes in, is when we don't turn around and say, you made me feel like this when you did this, right? And there's a couple of things. There's two things I want to talk about here. There's that, and then there's what you get to do with the emotion that you're having. Do you get to feel it and not project it back to anybody or give it to anybody? But many times people don't. They go off the handle and they respond right back to the person who's trying to get the reaction out of them, And where power comes in is, look, things are going to bother us, right? We're going to feel things. We're going to have triggers. Things are going to make us feel a certain way that might not make us feel the best. Where you have the power is that you don't give it to the person who is, causing this reaction in you, right? Now, the best way that you can handle any type of negotiations or any type of communication with people is to understand your own emotional response. So for example, if you're having a discussion with, it's usually our parents or our significant others and our children, people closest to us, that can make us feel a certain way because they know maybe they're the places in us that will make us feel, have that reaction, right? And we want to be able to not respond in that way, but we do. And sometimes, what happens is you will give people your emotional state. And what happens is you give them your power. So if you get upset and if you get really emotionally, charged and triggered, you're basically telling somebody, you know exactly what buttons to push in me. And every time you do, I'm going to give you part of my power. The greatest thing that you can do is twofold. You can have the emotion, let it go through, calm down, and then decide how you're going to react to the situation. Now, your reaction could be, I don't want to have interactions with this person anymore. Your reaction could be, I don't have a reaction to them. I'm not going to tell them that they upset me. Your reaction could be to have a discussion and say, you know what? That type of language, behavior, or whatnot, I get that that's how you want to behave, but it's no longer welcome where I am at. So you're setting up a boundary, right, on how you want to proceed. But what you shouldn't be doing, because it's literally allowing someone to have that hold over you, is to really yell back at somebody, to give them that, what they're looking for, to give them that heated response. Because at the end of the day, nothing good comes from that when you're speaking to somebody that way. It's just somebody blowing off steam, yelling at another person and blaming them, usually not for what's happening in that moment, but for everything that's happened in the past that got compounded and got rolled up into this big ball that just went boom. And guess what? You're not responsible for everything that happened to me as a child. I mean, literally, that's really what happens. So being able to be in control of your response, right, is amazing, but also knowing where to direct the reaction, the emotional feedback that you're putting out there. So I'm not saying don't stop with the emotions. I'm not saying to mute them, to not get angry. But what I'm saying is make sure that you don't give it to the person who's triggering that in you. Don't hand that over to them. Allow yourself to process, because the more that you process and you figure out, why did I get so upset? Why did this bother me so much? What is it? Because when you get to cool down, you will be able to reflect back to have a more of a strategic response, or to be able to assess the situation. You know, one of the things that I do with my brother is that if I get upset and I'm having a moment where everything's like, you know, and you're just like, you're probably acting a little bit, you know, immature and young. What you do is I would let those emotions come out. Maybe you have to go kick something, you have to scream or whatever it is. But I also have a safe place to go to my brother. I will go to him, I will text him, I'll message him and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. He usually at first would say, did you send this to that person yet? I'm like, no, I didn't send it. He's like, okay, good. Because he knows how to process his emotions really well. I have just, you know, really started doing this in the last, 10 years, but he's been doing it very well most of his life. And he is a good person for me to process with. So he'll be like, okay, what is really the underlying thing here? And we've got such a good system doing this. And I'm like, okay, this is what it is. And as we're talking it through, we're realizing, okay, it's about something so unrelated. And then I get to be in my power now. I get to be like, okay, well, why was that upsetting me? What is really there that I haven't looked at that maybe I really need to look at again and figure out why it's there? And this is where the power of my work comes in, because this is what I help many women do. And we look at it and see like, okay, well, why do you have this response, this reaction, right? What is here that's not serving you anymore? And how can you heal through it? How can you reframe this belief system? How can you come up with a new awareness around it so that it's no longer that like open wound in there if someone to touch it and go, ow, 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 ow. And then you go, ow, right? So then you can be like, well, now I know why I'm feeling this. And now you can have either a very calm reaction or zero reaction, because now you've neutralized what you were reacting to. So your response now can be neutralized, controlled, and strategic, and how you want to move forward. Now, if everybody adopted this in their life and their business, you do know what kind of communications would happen in our lives. We would literally be operating at such a high level of consciousness, having this emotional mastery. Very few people have this in the world. You will hear people, and I have an episode coming up about, well, they did that to me. Well, they spoke to me this way. Well, they knew that upset me and they did it anyway. They knew what they were doing. They knew how to push my buttons. They knew, do you know how powerless that person sounds that talks like that? They knew how to get to me. They knew what they were doing. They knew. Well, okay. So what do you know now? You know how to respond. You know that when you get upset, what are the steps you're going to go do? Not sit there and give them your power and give them your emotions and give them something that's heated up in you that's really probably not theirs to even have, right? And the thing is, why we're so disconnected from our emotions is because many of us grew up, even our parents, before that, not with people saying, hey, you know, what you're feeling is so natural and normal. You're supposed to have emotions. We are here to feel emotions. We are human. We are not robots. But that is not how we are taught or raised to be. Our emotions are not usually a safe place. It's where people can have power over us if they know. If we're vulnerable, they can take advantage of us. You know, if they know our weaknesses, they will get at us. They'll have the strategic upper hand on us. If we show them our cards, You know, in poker, they say, don't show any emotions, keep a straight face. That's literally how people have been going through life. Because if you show excitement, they're going to know, oh, that person has a good card, you know, or if you show like sadness or, oh my gosh, upsetness, maybe your cards aren't that great. So don't show any of your emotions, because if you do, people will have that, you know, that effect on you. But it goes both ways, because if you blow up, you're showing them something. And if you don't, you're showing them something too that you don't feel. And so I feel like the more that you can be in your humanness with your emotions, the more authentic you get to be, the more powerful you get to be, because you will not look at your emotions anymore as being a weakness, being vulnerable, being a place of where someone can come and get you. In fact, I feel vulnerability is one of my greatest strengths and powers now, and it never used to be, because how I feel matters. And what I'm feeling matters. And it's what I do with those emotions that matter the most, and how I proceed to the next level. The life that I create in the world is not just through my vision and what I see, but it's also what I feel. And the more authentic I am in my emotions, and the more that I can control those emotions and also allow myself to feel those emotions, and how I'm able to use those emotions, is the life that I'm going to create. Because with just a visualization, it's not enough to create the reality you want. You need to have the emotions backed by it, because that's where that energetic charge comes from. So if your emotions are always out of whack because you're trying to control them, you're flying off the handlebars, they're not in alignment, you are not going to be in a place where you could actually create the life that you want, or feel into a situation like, is this where I want to be? Or know when I need to leave a situation, know what situations to walk into, how to trust your intuition, you know, by always having a reaction and, you know, jumping out, falling off the handlebars, or, you know, having people be able to come in and, you know, push your buttons. You're not in a place of power, right? It's not a place of power. And you need to be able to feel, because feeling is one of the greatest things that you could possibly do in this life as a human, is to have the emotions. And 10 years ago, I would not have been telling you this, but 10 years later, now I realize that this is the most powerful place I possibly could be in my life. And the more that I feel, the more that I can create, the more that I can have, and more opportunities are opened up for me. Because really, this is the highest frequency, right? It's just this emotional state. So next time you get upset, decide whether or not this reaction that you're having, it might be warranted, it might be overblown, it might be needed because you needed to have that moment. But then decide how you're going to use that reaction. Are you going to give it to somebody else? Are you going to communicate in a different way? You're going to give yourself breathing room to calm down and let yourself process. Because I feel like that's one of the biggest mistakes that we have, is that we don't let ourselves calm down and process, then go have a conversation. We keep arguing with people, trying to prove our point, trying to say what our side is, because we're not doing it from a very calm emotional state. We're doing it from a heightened state of emotions, which is not communicating exactly what our grown people in us would be communicating. You know, for example, I'll give you one last thing. You see when people are upset, you know, maybe it's a customer service thing, right? Or you are interacting with someone. The moment that the other person has said something to you that is meant to cut you down, or meant to be a criticism towards you, or it's like almost like a name calling thing, you know that person is definitely not in their emotions. They're going from a very weakened state, because all they have to do right now is to hurt you with their emotions. And by doing that, what's going to happen is they're showing their cards. Because when I start seeing somebody, you know, calling you an ass or whatever things, or just, you know, what's the word I'm trying to say here, where they're just resorting to that type of communication, I know that person is communicating from a heightened emotional reaction state. And I know that I cannot have a very emotional, intelligent conversation with that person. So I know I end the conversation there. For example, too, on TikTok, that is a place where I guess a lot of trolls hang out, which I didn't know what that word was, but those are people in the internet, keyboard warriors, that will feel that they can go and cut other people down behind a keyboard, say what they want to say. But I remember going live on TikTok one time, and I had 300 people live, and there was people, you know, they were saying beautiful things, but then there was people that weren't, and they were saying very mean things, you know, and I have so much emotional mastery that I thought some of the stuff was funny. One person thought I had a nose job, and I was like, really? You think my nose is that cute that I actually had a nose job? But I know that that person on the other end is not in a place of emotional mastery, because someone who is would not be having those types of comments. So right away, they've invalidated themselves to me, and whatever they have to say does not matter, because I'm not going to put weight on it, because something that other people are saying to me, and it's not coming from a place of someone that I respect, or they're coming from a heightened, emotional intelligence place, it doesn't really matter, because it's just coming from a place of just their state and their emotional state and how they're having a reaction towards something, and they're not responding from a place of, power. So I literally dilute those things and wash them away. So think about your interaction with people moving forward. Maybe it could be at a restaurant, it could be at a service place, it could be with your employees, it could be with your significant other. I am so good at talking to service providers. When I don't like a service, I'm like, hey, this is how this made me feel, because this is what happened. And many times, when I met with the owner, whoever else, they're like, wow, we thought you were going to respond and be so upset, but you're really here trying to find an amicable solution. Because I'm not trying to make them pay for something. If they want to upgrade and do something special for me, great. But I'm not sitting there putting all my negative emotions on them. I had a reaction, I processed it, and okay, what's the resolution now? What is a strategic response to this? Very, very powerful stuff. Very few people know how to do this in life. And, the worst that you can do too is if somebody has upset you and you don't process those emotions, and you don't allow yourself to feel, and you just clam up and you don't say anything, do anything, because you don't feel like you have a voice either. And that's for a whole nother podcast episode. But right now, instead of having this reaction to people, you can react, but process, figure out what it is, and then decide how you're going to respond. But instead of blowing up and reacting, think about it. Is that person really going to take you seriously for calling them names and you're blowing up and yelling at them? Because someone like me would not. I would look at that and be like, well, this person's not in a high intelligence right now, and I'm not going to have a conversation with them. Nothing you say after that to me is going to have validity or be of value or anything, because, you're just coming from an emotional state where you're not thinking correctly. You're not having a response that I can communicate with. Powerful communication comes from really knowing your reaction and your response, but being a powerful leader and being somebody who also can stand in their power without handing it over to other people is somebody that knows the difference between having a reaction and how you respond, and what to do with both, and how to be in that state. So I hope that you found value with this episode. It's a really longer conversation. This is something that I teach on a deep, deep level, because many people don't know how to control their reactions. Many people don't know how to not have that moment of, wait a minute, what's happening here? Because they call them triggers, right? And when you have an emotional trigger, let me tell you, it doesn't matter what's going on, your body's going to go into respond mode. And so how we don't do that is we get into the deepness of why you're feeling that way and how we can move through that and process it, because it's just stuck energy. It's just a stuck belief. It's just something stuck in you that you haven't processed and felt all the way through. Most of our emotions are just like that. They got cut off and they are stunted inside of us. So they're sitting there like thorns, waiting for people to touch them. And you haven't felt the emotion all the way through because it doesn't feel safe for you. And once you learn how to do that, believe me, mastery of self comes from mastery of emotions. Again, if you haven't taken Accessing the Quantum through Emotional Self-Mastery, you're hearing a theme here, right? You need to go take that program. All right, go ahead and join our Facebook group, The Quantum Woman, and check out our quantum swag. We've got amazing good stuff in the store, and stay tuned for the next episode. Bye for now.